Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series, talking now to in-transition folks and dealing with that difficult question, which is, tell me about yourself. We're going to cover this in two parts. In the first part, in this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about sort of what's going on behind the scenes here and some of the common concerns I have from the people I coach, and how do I handle this question? What do I talk about? Do I talk personal, professional? How long do I talk? How detailed do I get? How do I end it effectively? There are a myriad of questions that I get about this, and it's one of those kind of unknown things that people tend to just wing it and hope it goes okay, and that's kind of unfortunate because you know you're going to get hit with it. You might as well have some kind of game plan going in, and so that's what we're going to talk about. And in our next segment on this, we'll actually walk through a structured answer. And actually, I use the acronym of GEESE, G-E-E-S-E. So we'll get to that. But first of all, what do I talk about? Personal, professional? Well, I'd say 99% of the people would say you want to talk professional. That's pretty understood. Once in a great while, they'll say, nah, we'll get to that. Just tell me a little more about you, a little bit about what you do for fun, your hobbies. Okay, fine. But that's so rare, I'm going to assume it's professional. Other questions I get deal with, how detailed do I get? Do I go into a long answer, brief answer? How much is too much? And I'm not sure there's a great answer for that, but here's my thought on this. My thought is that an employer doesn't so much care what you're saying right now as much as they are how you're saying it. How are you coming across? Now, I could sit here like this and have a monotone answer, and I could look down all the time and look away, and I could say the greatest words, and I could say every word effectively. The employer would be doing that. So, see, and I even look down at myself. All of those things you don't want to do. So what you want to do is you want to show enthusiasm. You want to come across as conversational. You don't want to be nervous. You don't want to be too fidgety, too rambling, all of those sorts of things. Now, it's also important at the end, I feel, to ask a question of the employer. Why is that important? Well, it's important for a few reasons. For one, if you stop and think, the normal interview structure, bear with me for a second. Normal interview structure, you come in, they'll tell you have a seat, so you're both seated. They'll say, so tell me about yourself, and you'll give an answer, and that's fine. And then they'll say, well, great. Let me explain a little bit about this position. Let me tell you about our company. Then they'll go ahead and ask questions of you. And then after that, they'll allow for you to ask questions of them. The interview then ends. Is that really a good thing? Probably not. Because what it does is it strips you typically of the latitude to ask questions. And unfortunately, a lot of times the employer may do a good job of addressing questions. You're stuck at the end when they say, all right, Randy, do you have any questions for me? And you're saying, I had them, but you answered them all. In other words, you're left, the cupboard's bare. That's not good. So typically, an interview is a give and take. It's a dialogue. And by asking questions, it puts you in control. It allows you to elicit information from them. It allows you to stop and breathe a little bit and relax. That's tough if you're on the receiving end of 5, 10, 15 questions. I mean, you got to just think left and right. Difficult to do. So it helps put you at ease a little bit. It gives a little bit of time for them to talk and allows you to just kind of sit back and take it in for a little bit. Now, the acronym GEESE, we'll get into that in our next segment. It's greeting, education, experience, skills, and an employer question. We'll tell you a little bit about the phrasing for each of those and how they flow from point to point and why it's important for you. So we'll get to that in our next segment, but that'll wrap it up for this in our Edge Library series, talking with the folks in transition about handling the difficult question of tell me about yourself. This is part 1, and we'll get to part 2 next. I'm Randy Wooden. Thanks for watching.